A developer is creating a RESTful API service using an API gateway with Lambda integration. The service must support different API versions for testing purposes. Which of the following would you suggest as the best way to accomplish this? Set up an API gateway resource policy to identify the API versions and provide context to the Lambda function. Deploy the API versions as unique stages with unique endpoints and use stage variables to provide the context to identify the API versions. Use an API gateway Lambda authorizer to route API clients to the correct API version. Use an X version header to identify which version is being called and pass that header to the Lambda function. All right. Deploy the API versions as unique stages with unique endpoints and use stage variables to provide the context to identify the API versions. Standard name value that you can define as contributors. Stage variables. Okay, I need to look into that. Okay. Let's say you have an e-commerce platform with an API for managing orders. You initially deploy version 1 of your API, which includes endpoints for creating, updating, and fetching orders. Later, you introduce version 2 of the API, which includes additional functionality such as canceling orders. Version 1 of the API might have endpoints like, okay, version 2 of the API might have additional endpoints like, okay, by utilizing APIs, you can easily switch between versions of, okay. I think I'm explaining the answer now. Maybe that's what I'm doing. Okay. All right. An analytics company is using KDS, Kinesis data streams, to process automobile health status data from the taxis managed by a taxi ride hailing service. Multiple consumer applications are using the incoming data streams, and the engineers have noticed a performance lag for the data delivery speed between producers and consumers of the data streams. Which of the following options would you suggest for improving the performance for the given use case? Swap out KDS with KDF, swap out KDF with SQS FIFO queues, use enhanced fan out feature of KDS, swap out KDS with SQS standard queues. Use enhanced fan out features of KDS. That allows multiple applications to simultaneously read data from a single Kinesis stream without impacting each other's performance. Okay. You are running an application in production that is leveraging Dynamo database as its data store and has experienced smooth, sustained usage. There's a need to make the application run in development mode as well, where it will experience an unpredictable volume of requests. What is the most cost-effective solution that you recommend? Use provisioned capacity mode with auto-scaling enabled for both dev and production. Use provisioned capacity mode with auto-scaling enabled for production, and use on-demand capacity mode for development. Use provision capacity mode with auto-scaling enabled for dev, and use on-demand capacity mode for production. Oh, okay. Use on-demand capacity mode for both dev and prod. Okay. Use provision capacity mode with auto-scaling enabled for production, and use on-demand capacity mode for development. On-demand capacity mode in development, the volume mode tend to be more unpredictable and often lower compared to, yeah. All right, one more. You have an application running for over a year now using a Dynamo database table with provisioned RCUs and WCs without any throttling issues. There's a requirement for your table to support second type of queries, so you have decided to use the existing LSI and create a new GSI to support these queries. 1 month later, the table begins to experience throttling issues. After checking the table's CloudWatch metrics, you found that you haven't exceeded the table's provision RCU and WC. What should you do? The LSI is throttling, so you need to provision more RCU and WCU to the LSI. Adding both an LSI and GSI to a table is not recommended by AWS best practices, as this is a known cause for creating throttles. The GSI is throttling, so you need to provision more RCU and WCU to the GSI. CloudWatch metrics take time to propagate. You should see the RCU and WCU peaking for the main tables in a few minutes. The global secondary index is throttling, so you need to provision more RCU and WCU to the. Okay. They have a workload. It's experience increasing. It should help alleviate that. It's worth noting when you add a new, it consume additional. Okay, maybe the GSI requires additional read and write, but not maybe LSI. Okay, let's move forward with our lives.